Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Today, it's November 3rd, 2022. We are doing our annual November core topic on time tracking and reporting. And I'm super excited because my good friend Jessica Metcalfe will be with us today to add and contribute. And there's an outside chance we might have another couple folks pop in. Laura Keene is here. Maybe she'll have something to say. This is actually her topic when we do this. So this is a core topic. And as to the folks who've been online live right now, I already just told them we do this core topics, this one every November, right before daylight savings time. And it's one of those core topics, are those things that people ask about a lot. And we make sure that we include in the workshops. And so this is typically Laura's area of conversation, because when we first started doing the workshops, I refused to do my own time tracking, but you're going to find why that's changed in this conversation today. But I'm super excited that Jessica is going to share her discoveries and revelations around that. And so to have Jessica Metcalfe as a special guest is quite exciting for me. So for those who don't live in Hawaii or Arizona, you should remember that daylight savings time does in fact end this weekend. And quick story on that: I used to work at a bar that was open till 3 a.m. And so daylight savings time ends at 2 a.m. And so this was a particularly special night for some people, not necessarily for us who worked at the bar, because it gave people an extra hour to become more intoxicated. And so that was usually a time when we had additional police presence because things got a little out of hand. But let's just say it was memorable. But anyway, remember to sit back time and sleep in an extra hour on Sunday. Oh, so there's the information you should know. So our topic today is tracking time. The question, and I will say thank you to Laura Keene, because these are her slides that I've borrowed, stolen, however you want to put it. This is the slides that she originally put together. But why would you bother about this? And I don't know. Does anybody want to put something in the chat about why you would bother to do these things? Chat. In the chat, people are saying makes you more accurate for your next project, for efficiency, helps you plan for future work. I think those are all true. Keeps you on track for what you're doing. And I think these are so I will tell you, when I was originally with a large international consulting firm, of course, we tracked our time because our time was used to bill to our clients. And that's the way we operated, very much like a lawyer does, in 15-minute increments. And it's tedious and it was painful. And I did it throughout graduate school as well. And so I got to start my own consulting practice, and I said, I felt very much like the gentleman in this picture. Why bother? I'm going to get my work done. I'm going to invoice for the amount that I can invoice for. It's going to be great. But as I took on more projects and I took on staff, which was for me the critical reason why I needed to start tracking my time, I really needed to have a better handle on what was going on with our projects, with my staff. We wanted to institute a vacation or a PTO policy. That's why we bothered. So, as we know, time is currency. For many of us, I try not to do this, but many people do bill by the hour, so you certainly need to know what time you spend on projects. But frankly, it's also currency for future planning, as I think somebody pointed out. I think Amy pointed out, you can use the time that you used on previous projects to forecast for your future projects. And that's primarily how I think about it. Here's a list of time tracking tools. Jessica put together a list as well. I'm going to let her talk about the ones that she has. The ones we are here, I mean, you could create a fairly simple. This is what I did for years and years. I did a Microsoft Excel time tracker. QuickBooks, you'd be very happy to take your money for doing that. And they will, if you've used QuickBooks extensively, and this can be a good approach, because you could put in a billing rate, and the billing rate can be put directly into invoices, and the invoices can go out. You can create an automatic process. I use, I don't even see it here. Did I remove it? Oh no, it's in the middle. Toggle Track. Toggle, what is a kind of a, it's a program that a lot of us use when you have 5 or fewer employees. It's free. Of course, it's limited in its scope, but it's a free application for 5 or less. And then once you get to 6, it starts to cost a lot of money. But hypothetically, if you have 6 employees, you have enough activity where it doesn't become a big cost expense. There's a lot of big cost expenses when you get to about 6 employees, and this is one of them, but it becomes a thing. I can't speak to these other ones like EverHour or PayDirt or Tick or Top Tracker. I'm not even sure if some of these even exist. I know Harvest does, and I hear a lot about Harvest, but I can't really speak to the value of these other ones. But this is here for your purposes. If you're interested, I think I can share this slide with you. Make sure you send me a private message if you want to track these down. I'd also suggest anytime you have big questions like this, because we know that this is a topic that people ask about a lot, if they do ask about it in the e-group. So I would encourage you to go to the IC topic, or so the IC TIG e-group, and just type in time tracking, and you'll find that a lot of people have already asked these questions. They've already answered these questions, and there's a lot of good resources there. This is definitely a topic that has been discussed more than one time with lots of feedback. So, I mean, I hope hopefully by now, all of you know that any question you have, you can throw out there and you will likely get a response. I even responded to something yesterday about a question somebody had about identifying contractors at universities. Oh, there's my toggle track. Well, that just jumped right up at me. I didn't know where it was first. This is what toggle looks like, or toggle track. It was originally just toggle, and then they decided to get bigger and do more things. And I don't use the other resources. I use track. So this is the track module. And this is actually from a year ago. You can see this was November of 2021. But you can see I met with Elizabeth Broom at that point, and I had a meeting with ROE 33. And you basically just take your mouse and you kind of scroll over the spaces, hold it down, and then you type in what you want. The beauty part here is you have, let's see, this is the isotopic chat. Isotopic chat, I would type in what I did and how I identify it with a project and with a client. So in this, an isotopic chat for me would be the client is AEA for me, and the project is professional development. I have other projects like STEM camp for me. The STEM camp is its own activity that I spend a lot of time with, and that is the project is STEM camp, and the client is the National Defense Education Program. You can see some of these examples, and so you fill up your time. So I'll show you what we do with it. So when you do a little reporting, you can see here's my staff and the hours they spent over the year. This is last year's on different things. We can see this individual had 766 hours, and I had 1,971 hours. She left in the middle of the year, so that's why she wasn't up to everybody. At that time, Evan had just started with us, and so he was only recent to our staff. So why do we do this? Tom, here's a question Tom asked me. Hey, Matt, how much do we want to charge for that STEM box program? And I said, I don't know, $800. And then I stopped and I said, wait a second, Tom, how much time did you spend on it last year? So he took a look at it. We looked at not a lot of time, but the better part of 2 days. So I said, well, the answer is you spent 15 hours on it. We charged you out at 125 hours, 16. We should charge him $2,000, which is what we did. And so this thing all paid for itself with just that one question, because I was prepared to take $1,200 less for this project because I just thought it doesn't take a lot of time to do it, but it in fact took the better part of 2 days. So that's why we do time tracking. That right there is exactly it. And this is just one small example, and we do this all the time now. When we're looking at new projects, how much time do we spend on that STEM National Science Foundation scholarship program? last year because we want to forecast for a new client. We're in the process of doing that right now. So here's another example. Hey, Matt, how much PTO do I have? PTO stands for paid time off, which we use for a combination of vacation and sick time. So we developed a fairly simple, I think, relatively simple Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I add a lot of little features into it, but it doesn't have to be very complicated. We download the data from Toggle and we put it directly into this Excel spreadsheet, and you can see here's my hours for last year. And you can see that I started on January 1st. I worked 40 hours a week, and sadly, this is true. I only used 8 hours of PTO. I had 125 left, and so we run that report, and you can see I had 8.5 weeks of PTO and comp time combined to use at the end of November, and sadly, it's about the same this year too. I will say, on a complete side note, my goal for next year is to have 0 in 2023. And I think I can accomplish that. If this is the way we do it, and you can see this is just a fairly simple Excel spreadsheet using some formulas. I'd be happy to share that with anybody who sends me a note. But anyway, that's how I use my time tracking, and this is why I do it, because we do it for internal, just human resource policy. People have so much vacation that they can take, or PTO that they can take. How much have they actually taken and put into their time tracking system? And we use it primarily for scoping out new projects. We have a couple of projects that we do keep our hours on, and so we need to use it for that. There's a lot of additional tools, and I think Jessica's going to share her experiences in just a second. But we actually are starting to use tags, which just kind of says, what are you doing? What's a kind of common activity that you're doing? Are you report writing? Are you in the middle? Are you conducting meetings? Are you doing supervision? So those are tags that we might be using. Are you in travel? Those sorts of things that you might be using. Let's see. Hey, Jessica Metcalfe. What do you know about time tracking that we don't? So I'm going to pass it over to her. So I'm going to stop share, and I'll let her pop in and she could share her screen. Oh, before we go, here's her slide that she shared with me. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt. This is a great place to start. So, hey, everybody. I think I know many of you already. I'm Jessica Metcalfe. I have had kind of a journey with time tracking, and I was excited that we were going to be talking about this topic again, because I only just maybe in the last month or two had some revelations about how to best track time for my work style. So I've only recently discovered time tracking tools that are a bit more automated than some of the options we just looked at. So moment of transparency, I am someone who has just a touch of ADHD, and I do not have a one-track mind. I very frequently jump from task to task, and pushing a button every time I switched from one project to another was something I really found challenging. And I found that because I jump back and forth between things frequently enough, it was really disrupting my workflow and work style, or I just wasn't doing it. I wasn't, able to remember every single time to, make sure that I was keeping accurate track of things. And ultimately, it was something that was like a real learning curve for me as I started independent consulting. So this slide that Matt has up right here are just a couple of different automatic time tracking tools that I've discovered. And basically what they do is they track the amount of time that you spend in any screen or program or file or email without you having to do anything specific, no checking the time, no pressing a button. And at the end of the day or the end of the hour or whenever you feel is the best time for you, you can go ahead and go into these programs and kind of aggregate and organize your information in a way that makes sense for your business. I personally use Timely right now, and I feel like just to some degree I'm still shopping a little bit. Every once in a while I'll have an issue where it's a little clunky, so I'm interested in trying out a couple of these other tools that are on the screen here as well, and I'll show you just a couple kind of brief taste of a few of them. But basically that's what automatic time tracking is, you know, programs that will track what you're doing in each screen, and the amount of time you spend there. And then you get to kind of organize things on the back end. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. So I think if I just share my main screen and then pop these up here. All right, so I wanted to just give everyone a quick preview of how Timely works. So this is the program I'm using currently. I think I'm paying $10 a month for it. There's an $8 a month option if you want to commit to a whole year at once, which I haven't managed to do yet because I still want to check out some of those other programs I showed. But what Timely does is it organizes all of your different tasks and windows and things you've been doing during the day on the right-hand side of your screen, and you get to pull them over into different time entries. And this is the list version, which I find to be much less overwhelming because it tells you the total time in every window. If I pop to the timeline version, this will show you why I need Timely. If I only did one thing at once, I would only have one column on the left-hand side there. But as you can see, I'm popping back and forth between things all day. So I can't use the timeline version. I use the list version, and that timeline just gives you an idea of why the automatic software works really well with my work style, because it really aggregates all this information for me. So I went ahead and I went back to my day on Monday. This is a pretty typical day. And I had already organized this, but I cleared everything out so I could just show you guys the process and how it works here. So I'll go ahead and pull something up. So I know one thing that I worked on this day was an infographic. And then I pop over to the right side and I just drag my tasks over here. I have to tell them which client here. And I'll drag my tasks over and say, all right, so I have my infographics here. Let's see, looking for some data. Here's some infographic data. And I think that's everything for that task. So it'll give us a suggestion. It says, I calculated you spent 38 minutes in these windows. Sometimes you'll decide you want to round up, or maybe you were doing something that wasn't on your computer, you were taking notes. So you can change the time to anything you like. I usually trust Timely and say, yep, you're correct. So now I've got my infographic task saved. I'll only do a couple of these for you guys just to kind of give you a taste here. But I also worked on another report here. And I just go over to the right side and look at all my tasks and say, all right, I gotta grab everything from my FIG report here. So I scroll down and say, all right, here's another version. And we also had some data that's relevant to this one. And obviously you guys, are not familiar with the specific names of all these files and stuff like that. You know your own files. So it's usually a pretty quick process for me at the end of the day to pop through and say, all right, here's all the tasks I worked on. I drag all of the things over. I can also pay a little bit of attention to time that I spend not working. You might see the weather pop up very frequently. In Vermont here, I kind of live and die by the weather. So I'm always checking, are we having snow coming soon? When are the ski mountains going to open up? So I can also use this program to see, how many minutes am I spending on, little diversions during my lunch hour and things like that. So I could go and sort the entire day, but I think that gives you, kind of a brief introduction to how this works. You just have all your tasks kind of lined up. You can click and drag them into different places. It does have a variety of different reporting options. This is just kind of like a weekly summary that it can give me. Ultimately, I really like to mess with my own data. So I often will just download the Excel data that Timely provides and then do my own, visualizations and graphs and things like that. So I don't necessarily utilize that part of the service super heavily, but they do have it. And I guess the other thing I just wanted to pop up on my screen before we switch to discussion was just some information that are on a couple websites of some of these other programs. So some of these have been recommended to me from other folks in my entrepreneur groups. So Rise looks like it's one that does have, some kind of cool visualization stuff going on. It's got a nice interface. I have heard good things. Oh, I have to turn my ad blocker back off. I had it off previously here, but I've heard pretty good things about rescue time as well, in terms of kind of just creating some cool visuals about how you're using your time. I think they also have some tools that will help you look at your like productivity patterns and things like that. So I feel like I've really just started to scratch the surface when it comes to automated time tracking. I'm not necessarily wed to using Timely. I have found that a lot of these programs do have free trials that you can use for suffice for your needs. I am a one-person shop, so I only need to track my own time, which keeps things even simpler. But I think that all of these platforms I've mentioned have different options for teams, and even I know Timely has its own project management, task-related system. So there's a lot of cool automated options out there, and I'm not sure I've even settled on my favorite yet, but it has just been a really big game changer for me to be able to kind of let the computer do the work and, accept that often, working on one report and I found a really great icon that I think, oh, I've got to remember to, pop that into this other report I'm working on. So kind of accepting that that's my work style and finding a time tracking approach that works for me has been really helpful. And I feel like I've got a much better handle on time tracking than I had in the past. So that's kind of my spiel on automatic time tracking. I see there's things in the chat that I've completely missed, but I can probably pause there and hand it back to Matt.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen again if I can figure out how to do that. The things that I was thinking about when I saw your slides were how much time it does in fact take to, do your time tracking. And if you're like me, on occasion, I get behind and I have to go do a week at a time. And I'm thinking it sure would be nice to be able to look back and have something that tracked how was I spending my time. And actually, some of it might be nice to have some of these products that will tell me how I spent my time and perhaps misspent my time so I can get better at it. Although I know when we get into the comment section and or the chat section of this, just a couple minutes, I know people want to talk about privacy issues, and particularly privacy issues if you're working with staff or trust issues. That could be a whole other conversation too. You should be seeing my screen now. I do want to. Oh, okay, lots of things going on here. Sorry about that. Looks like I'm gonna do a share again of my screen. Yeah, I'm aware that I'm in my no, I know what it is. I'm in the wrong one. Sorry guys, let's put this over here. I'm gonna put this up, and I know I'm in my version of it. I do want to say the upcoming sessions in 2 weeks, we'll have Meet the Pros, which is gonna be a 2-hour session. Next week, if you happen to be at AEA in New Orleans, make sure to find us on Thursday at noon. And I will put in the chat while everybody's chatting now, in the typing chat part while we're chatting, how you can sign up to make sure you know where that's going to be. We won't have a session in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Lost. It'll be Thanksgiving. We're going to do key performance indicators. And I'm just announcing now, you can see the other sessions we've got coming up. Margaret Patterson's going to be joining us to help host celebrating our successes for 2022. But I'm putting out there that we're going to do a subcontractor affair on February 9th. I've been thinking about it. I've been tentatively planning it, but I haven't really kind of committed to it until now. So anyway, I thought I'd put that out there. So with that, I'm gonna stop the recording. Let's get into the chat section, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and I'd like to try and get after some of these questions. There's so many questions that we've seen in the chat. All right, thanks guys.